Joining us now, Stephen K. Bannon. Steve is the host of the most popular, riveting radio and television show in America, War Room Pandemic, and he's rocking it 10 to noon every day, Monday through Saturday on the John Fredericks Radio Network, also on Real America's Voice News, the Dish Network, Channel 219, and heard across the globe. And he is with us now, Stephen K. Bannon. Steve, great to have you.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for all the work in Job Creators Network and Keep America, all the work you guys are doing down in Georgia right now.
Well, Steve, I tell you what, I have been, when I'm done with this 3-day tour, I've been in 15 cities in 15 days in Georgia, going across the state. People are angry. They're fired up. Today, Perdue and Loeffler said, we've got 80,000 additional voters that have registered in Georgia between November 3rd and December 7th. They asked for who are the voters. Can we have a list? They have not gotten it. Now, the Republicans, as I know it, have not had a vote registration effort, which leads me to believe that the overwhelming majority of those 80,000 are Democrats from Stacey Abrams. And so the argument gets down again. What are the Republicans doing in Georgia to stop the steal again?
They're doing nothing. They're doing nothing. They're avoiding reality. And I have a lot of respect for Senator Loeffler and Senator Perdue, but the consultants around them have got to get a reality check. That this is Stacey Abrams. You know, Stacey Abrams ran the table on these non-chain of custody votes, and we're falling into the same situation. I mean, your Georgia Star News has done an incredible job with Michael Patrick Leahy of looking at the non-chain of custody, I think of over 500,000 votes of the 1.3 million mail-in votes cast, and you're going to go into the same dilemma. But it's very simple. What you need in Georgia, you need a special session of the legislature. And if it takes the governor to call that, then it should be called. If it takes 3/5, it should be called. Whatever the technicality is not the point. The point is a special session must be called immediately, and people must get to the bottom of this, particularly this consent decree. And that's what Linwood's lawsuit's about. That's now up on the docket of the Supreme Court. But you've got to get to the bottom of this. And I think their campaigns have missed the point. You're going to go through the exact same situation you went in November 3rd, where Donald Trump won overwhelmingly. And I actually believe that Senator Perdue and Kelly Loeffler won. And here we are in this situation where we're doing the exact same thing over again. And, you know, Dan Crenshaw made this video, and people can make all these videos and talk about, hey, we got to save the world. They're missing the point. I'm all about winning. I want to hold the Senate. I want to win. But you got to get focused on what it's going to take to win. And I got to tell you, if this doesn't go down, and I think a lot of the Trump voters are just going to sit there and go, we need to fight for Trump now, because in fighting for Trump now, you're ensuring victory in the Senate. I think there ought to be a major effort to recall this governor and the people, the lieutenant governor and the secretary of state. This is outrageous what's happened in Georgia. And to have people just sit there and accept it is to accept the trashing of the Constitution and the demise of this republic. It's what Franklin said on Independence Day, a republic if you can keep it. Well, I would challenge everybody in Georgia, and particularly the campaigns of Senator Loeffler and Perdue, to get with the program. Because right now, this thing of hoping and taking out, Karl Rove and these guys raising money and doing TV ads. This is not about TV ads. Stacey Abrams has already done it again. Look at the 80,000 votes. So I don't know what's going on down there, but it is emblematic of the rot that has gotten into this party, right? And where the energy and dynamism of the Trump movement and President Trump himself, and people understand he's fighting. Look at his tweets last night. You're going to see a lot of fight today. You're going to see a lot of fight at these state capitals of the electors, right? You're going to see. I think you're going to see. I believe, and I strongly recommend it, a special counsel, an independent special prosecutor, special counsel for election fraud in all the 6 states. It ought to go, all 50 states, but focus on the battleground states, ought to be named immediately, given subpoena power, and not ask Bill Barr, President's chief magistrate. Doesn't need to ask Bill Barr. He can ask his opinion, but he should order it, and he should also separately order a special counsel on this Biden CCP, the compromise of the Biden family, which we know Barr and basically Ray hid from the American people. Well, Joe Biden stood on stage in front of the nation at the debate and lied, bald-faced lied, about his son's involvement with the Chinese Communist Party, the money they were making. He bald-faced lied about it. And Barr, knowing that there was an investigation, and now every day we're finding out more and more and more as CNN and others are starting to get involved here, we know that this investigation has been going on for about 6 months, 8 months, maybe longer.
Right.
So we're hurtling towards a crisis in this country, and it can be avoided. It can be avoided by something called action, action, action. And it's a disgrace what is happening down in Georgia. But don't think the president is going to take this sitting down. I think you're going to see a lot of action today. Obviously, there's two critical things going on. One in Michigan, where there's been all this effort to suppress what's coming out about the Dominion voting systems. I think you're going to start to see that coming forward today in that county, Antrim County, which you have a county, Ware County down in Georgia, which I think they outed the same sort of problem. But Antrim County in Michigan is going forward. I think you're going to start to see revelations on that today that will have broader context. And I'm not saying there's any kind of James Bond servers in Iran or servers in Spain or servers in Europe and gun battles between the CIA and the military. I'm talking about the practicality of how the software, calculated or tabulated the vote differently in Antrim County, and I think leads all to Michigan, and I think that has a big impact on Michigan. In addition, I think the biggest news today is Wisconsin. If you go to War Room Pandemic, and Reince Priebus and the team out there in state Supreme Court did an amazing job of showing how the Democrats systematically cheated, and they were caught dead to rights by the great people up in Wisconsin. Basic average citizens, solid Republicans who refused to back down. The difference in Wisconsin and in Georgia couldn't be different. There you've got actual Republican people on the commission and Republican office holders. They're sitting there going, no. This is the rules. This is what the rules were. You don't get to change the rules just because you want to change them. And they've caught them dead to rights. And I think it was a 6-hour hearing on Saturday, a very unique Saturday session of the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And everybody in Wisconsin, all the liberals thought they were going to rule that night or early Sunday morning. Well, hey, it hasn't ruled so far. And listen, if we get a ruling on the law, forget the remedy, but if we get a ruling on the law, then that's it for Biden. That shows you. My theory is one falls, they all fall. And all you need is a ruling on the law by the Wisconsin Supreme Court and the justices up there to say, hey, they stole this. They did it. And they did it systematically. They did it in a sneaky fashion. It was systematic. This wasn't just a mistake. They plotted this out on this early vote. They plotted this out on the long-term care people. They plotted it out on the ballot harvesting, and they were caught. And they were caught by citizens who refused to budge and say it was okay. And I think Wisconsin ought to be a symbol for Pennsylvania, particularly Pennsylvania and Georgia, which I think, honestly, the elected officials have been a disgrace. And I think Wisconsin's showing
Steve, so what happens
Wisconsin's showing you the way forward.
So walk us through Wisconsin. What exactly happens there now? I mean, how does it?
Wisconsin's at the Supreme Court, and they're going to have a ruling, I think, today. And it's about the law itself. Was the law broken in doing this early voting and doing this ballot harvesting and all this stuff they got caught on? And the second is the remedy. Do the ballots? Does this get flipped? Now, look, guys, who knows? Look, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't, and I don't want to predict this. But the remedies here are pretty severe, right? The remedies that they're asking for is to throw those votes out. And that would shift this thing to President Trump. Now, there's twofold. One is the law, and the other is the remedy. But we have to see what happens. The most important of all of it right now is to get a ruling of the law, because all the media is saying all this is baseless. You notice they never talk about Wisconsin. Wisconsin's not baseless. They got caught cheating. And now they're saying, oh, it was because of COVID, and we had to do this because of the pandemic. And, of course, they always go to racism. They're saying, oh, the guy's arguing this to racist because it's focused on Milwaukee and it's focused on where the university is. And so, which is farthest from the truth. Of citizens of Wisconsin, these election officials, these solid Republicans, I call them the Iron Brigade from the old regiment, that brigade that was part of the Union Army in the Civil War. And these guys are just they're straightforward, and they will not back down, and they have not backed down to date. So it's going to be very interesting. But I can tell you, all the progressives thought this thing was going to be ruled on quickly, on Saturday, it was not ruled on quickly, and that shows you there's a big fight, and there's very contentious, I'm sure, at the Wisconsin Supreme Court. So there's a lot of activity, and this thing's far from over. Don't think that today is going to put any stamp that's indelible. This thing's going to go on. President Trump's going to fight. We got a lot more fight in. There's a lot of court cases out there. There's a lot of people pushing. There's all kind of pressure on state legislatures, which I think in Georgia's a specific thing. If the governor and the Republicans in the donor class is interested in having Mitch McConnell be leader on the evening of January 5th, okay, with 2 victories in Georgia, they better get a special session called in Georgia to make sure that the Trump people feel that this thing was fully adjudicated. I'm not saying what the outcome has to be, but my point is you have to have a forum where this thing gets adjudicated. And so I'm not saying to say you got to rule for Trump. I'm not saying
I agree with that.
Hey, it's evidence. The Democrats should have a full shot of saying no, that's not the way it was. Just like in Wisconsin, right? They should have a full shot. And so I think they have to do it. And I think the donor class is kidding themselves if they think that this thing can get worked out in January. And look, I'm not anti-holding the Senate. I'm not anti-Perdue and Loeffler. I think they're terrific people. I think Senator Perdue is a terrific guy, but I think he hurts himself in going around on these TV shows and going around to these rallies and not standing up there and banging on the table and saying, we need a special session. We've got to fight for Trump. We've got to get to the bottom of this, because the seeds of how they stole it from Trump is exactly the seeds of how they're going to steal it on January 5th. And as they don't get to the back of this consent decree and the back of this mail-in ballot fiasco, right? And you guys have done an incredible job.
Right.
You notice the arrogance of Fulton County. Oh, we're going to get back to Michael Patrick Leahy on the evening of the 19th of January. They're rubbing your nose in it. They're laughing at you.
Yeah.
They're laughing at you. And the voters understand that. The problem with the political class and the donor class and the consultants, they think people are idiots. Mm-hmm. This is one of the things we do on War and Pandemic. Why is the show so big and so popular? Because we treat the American people and the deplorables like they're smart. They are. They're smart as the guys in boardrooms that run, the globalist corporations. I say my grandfather went to 3rd grade in school. My dad was a high school graduate. That was it. The 2 smartest guys I ever met. 2 best read, most well-read guys. You give me the choice of being governed in this country by the first 50 people that show up at a Trump rally with a MAGA ball cap on, or the top 50 partners at Goldman Sachs, or the top 50 partners at McKinsey, or the top 50 professors at Harvard, and I will take the deplorables every day of the week, and you'll have a safer, more prosperous, happy country. And this is what the problem with the Republicans are. They treat their voters like morons. Their voters are not morons. They're actually very smart. And Donald Trump treats them like they're very smart, and that's why they gravitate to Donald Trump. It's time that the apparatus start to treat the voting base, in particular in places like Georgia, something different than that they're morons, because they're not morons. They go everywhere. They got information. They're totally
I think people have had enough. Steve, you're right. I think in the 5 weeks I've been here, the one message I've got is people are done with this. They're just done with the whole thing, and they're done being treated like they're dumb, and they're just going to do what Newt Gingrich sends out an email, and everybody's supposed to jump and ask how high. Those days are over in Georgia, from what I've found. I want to get your opinion on Supreme Court Friday saying that this case had no standing, the one by Texas, and just kicking it back. What was your reaction to that, Stephen?
Well, you saw on the show, and some of the listeners got I don't want to say offended, had some umbrage. But I said, look, don't think that some fairy godmother is going to come here and wave a wand and everything's going to be okay. That's not the way it's going to be. I don't know about standing. Right. I'm not a constitutional lawyer, right? It looked fine to me. I knew there was always questions about it. That's why I actually had Ed Pazawali, one of our lawyers from Florida, that's one of the experts who's been dead spot on. He nailed what was going to happen in Florida and why Florida was going to be different than Pennsylvania and places like Georgia and Michigan. He nailed this a week before when we were going through the transition project of the left, of how they were going to steal this. Remember, I went around the country and gave this lecture series back in August and September about how, the work Raheem Kassam and others done, Bill McGinley. Pazawali nailed it. And Pazawali said on the show, hey, I don't think this thing is going to get standing. And, of course, a lot of our listeners, particularly in the live chat, had a full meltdown. And it's just, hey, you gotta understand this is very complicated. I think personally the Supreme Court's trying to avoid this. So that's what, and I think the Supreme Court's only going to turn it back. Their remedy for these things is just turn it back to the state legislatures. So that's why I think you need to see a profile in courage. And you saw in Georgia all the dissembling last week about this 3/5 and can we do it? And the guys in the House said they don't want to do it. You're not going to get your committee things. This is why people ought to start to be recalled. They shouldn't. I don't hear about we're going to primary the guy. Don't worry about primary the guy. Let's recall the governor. Let's recall that smug lieutenant governor. Right? The people in Georgia ought to get fired up if you want. You've got people put out their tools to deal with recalcitrant officials, and the way that they have basically disrespected the voting base in Georgia. And I'm looking at the polling from Trafalgar and McLaughlin and other people that say that I think Trafalgar had 53% of all citizens in Georgia think that there was malfeasance in this, and 58% won a special session. Remember, what the Trump voter is asking for is not a preordained answer in the special session. They're not sitting there saying you have to call special session, you have to flip it for Trump. I haven't heard one deplorable say that from Georgia. I haven't heard one deplorable. What they want is to get basically a forum, a legitimate forum, where the evidence is going to be put forward and allow the Democrats to counter that. I can tell you one thing, where it's happened in Michigan and where it's happened in Wisconsin, the Democrats don't look so good. Okay, well, you actually have a forum where they have to sit there and question people, and this comes forward, a part of the 2,000 affidavits. Democrats don't stand up so well. That's why in Michigan you're starting to see some movement now. That's why in Wisconsin you had this amazing hearing at the Supreme Court the other day. And Reince Priebus and his team has just done a terrific job of presenting the facts. Where the facts get presented, all of a sudden CNN and MSNBC are not talking about baseless anymore. That's propaganda. It's baseless. It's baseless. It's baseless. Well, Bernie Kerik and Rudy Giuliani have 2,000 signed affidavits under the penalty of perjury by American citizens who are prepared to go in under the penalty of perjury, right? Under a criminal act, they're prepared to step forward and say, no, this was wrong. This is what I saw. This is what went down. This is what the problems were. Okay, and there's other evidence besides that. So that's why I think with Barr's had his opportunity. For whatever reason, they went to the polling places, which they should, to monitor that day. But it looks like they've had no follow-up since then. Or if it's been follow-up, it's too weak. So that's why a special prosecutor, I think, needs to be announced today and to get on this. And that put the fear of God. You'll start to see all of these people coming forward when they know there's going to be a special prosecutor with subpoena power, just like there should be a special prosecutor on the Biden situation. It's time for the games to end in Washington, D.C., and it's time for the games to end in Georgia. And the people have full power to take charge here, and I think the people ought to just, if they got to recall these guys, they got to recall them. And I think if Perdue and Flawless want to be elected on the 5th, they ought to come out today and say, hey, elect us on the 5th, and we'll get in back of your recall petition on the 6th. We will go around Georgia and we will campaign for the deplorables to recall Kemp and his entire administration. Hey, and guess what? If the Democrats win in a fight, then hey, they win, right? Tell me, ask a deplorable right now. Would you rather be governed by a Democrat in Georgia or by Kemp? By a guy's going to look you in the eye and laugh in your face.
I think for Perdue and Loeffler to call for a recall for the governor, secretary of state, and lieutenant governor, I don't think they're going to do that, but it is the answer to get the Trump voters out, because you're right, Steve. They're not looking. The voters that I'm talking to, and I've been here for 5 weeks, they're not looking for the vote to get overturned. They're simply looking for the truth. And they're looking for Republicans in leadership to stand up for them and say, your vote matters. I'm going to fight for you. Not that I'm going to fight to overturn the 16 electors. I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to fight for the truth. And that's what they haven't gotten, and that's why they're upset.
The country, I've heard one mantra on this since it started. All legal votes must count, and no illegal or illegitimate or no chain of custody votes to count. Not all votes count, all legal votes count. That's all the deplorables are asking for. And if all legal votes are counted and Joe Biden's the winner, then Joe Biden is the winner. But all legal votes, it's legal votes. And that's why they feel people are mocking them, ridiculing them, and just prepared because they're afraid of the intimidation of the media and the corporatists in Wall Street who just want to move on, right, and want to get rid of Trump. that they're being shined on. Well, hey, this is not. They're just not going to sit there and take it. And this is why I'm a practical person. If Loeffler and Perdue want to win, and they can win, to me, they got to step up and show people that they're serious about this. And talking about, saving the Senate and saving the Western civilization and like that, it's just not going to stick. It's just not going to stick because they're saying you're not addressing the problem that's the here and now.
People just believe they're going to steal it again. And if you look at the fact that another 80,000 Georgia voters got registered between November 3rd and December 7th, I mean, who do you think? Those were not registered by the Republicans. Those were registered by Stacey Abrams and her operation, the vast majority of those. So people are now looking at that, figuring, okay, we don't have a list. We don't know who they are. There's no addresses. There's going to be P.O. boxes again. They're going to be put in the 20 additional drop boxes that Raffensperger just authorized. There's no chain of custody. So people don't believe in the system. And until Perdue and Loeffler are able to turn that, that represents a depression of the Trump vote. That's what we've been trying to say to them over and over and over. That's all they have to do. Hopefully they'll do it.
You've perfectly summarized it, and here's the tragedy of this.
Thank you.
The Senate races are so winnable for Republicans in the Trump movement. That they are so winnable. But if you're going to win them, you've got to act like you want to win them. And just to have this stuff, just to have these stupid ads and everything that's happening, Dan Crenshaw made this like fantasy thing. It's all a fantasy. Deal with the problem. If Loeffler and Perdue deal with the problem, if the Republican establishment deals with the problem, good things are going to happen. You're going to win on the 5th. If you don't deal with the problem, people are just not going to show up. You can spend all the TV ads you want. You can try to scare them all they want. 25 or 30% or some proportion of the Trump base is just not going to show up. That's just a fact.
That's just reality, and we can't. And again, because you're telling them, somebody is telling them to show up, doesn't make it happen. This is what I've been saying for 2 weeks. The biggest example of this is Newt Gingrich sends out a text and an email, all upset and mad at the Trump voters and shaming them for not voting. They don't care what he says, Steve. Sorry, Newt Gingrich, I love him. He was my congressman. I'm a big fan. Backed him in 2012. I mean, he's a relic. The deplorables no longer care what these people say. They want action, and if they get action, they're going to turn out. If they don't get action, there's a percentage of them, Steve, that are simply going to stay home. And we're not advocating it. We want them to come out, but we're trying to tell Loeffler, this is what they're saying.
Yeah, we're advocating the exact opposite. If you want them out, here's what it's going to take.
We want them out. We're trying to get them.
$40 million to do ads because they're not going to look at the ads, and the ads have no meaning.
Exactly, Steve. We're out of time. Thank you.
Call a special session and look at the chain of custody issues. Call a special session and have witnesses come up and let the Democrats go at it. We're an advocacy system. Have the Democrats. I have no problem with the Democrats going and drilling down and saying that tape's phony. They didn't show any votes. That's fine. That's what our system is about. That's what the deplorables want. They want their day in court, and they're going to get their
Stephen K. Bannon, you got it. Thank you for being with us. I'll see you at 10 a.m. today. John Fredericks Radio Network.